got more chance winning the lottery than making it as a professional footballer.
I think your responsibility is to guide them in the same direction as I went myself.
Things aren't just handed to you on a plate. I think you have to fight for them, and it's probably only the tough that survive, really.
Natural skills is not enough. The impact has to be straight away.
Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do.
If you have that belief, then that's the most important thing.
Keep it fun for as long as possible. If you love what you do, you'll be able to get through the tougher times.
If you're going to make it as a professional, pressure's coming, so we don't want the kids feeling it prematurely.
The top club, we don't have time and space to grow up the young. He plays if he's good enough.
Whether it's playing in the parks, competing in cages, or showcasing skills on the streets, for so many young boys, the dream is to become a professional footballer. But the reality is, 0.06% of them will ever achieve that dream. The stats, newly released after extensive research by Sky Sports, make difficult reading for all those aspiring youngsters. 1.65 million boys play our national sport, but of those, less than 1% of them make it into a club's academy system. From there, just 9% of those go on to make a single professional appearance. At the very top level, in the Premier League, the numbers are even smaller. Only 1.5% of academy players make it there. For those who do, it's a job like no other. For the vast numbers who don't, the reality can be hard to take. This is the home of football. For any young English academy player, the dream is to play here, at Wembley. We know that the journey to get there is incredibly difficult, but what's behind that journey? People know the statistics that so very few players go on to make it as a professional. But what's the truth behind those statistics? And how do young academy players make it to the very top? The starting point for this is to meet a man who wants to know more about academy football. He's spent more than 50 years in the professional game. He had 400 matches as a player and over 1,000 as a manager. It's fair to say he knows a thing or two about professional football.
This was my home for 16 years, Dolphin Street. Hasn't changed much. 8 of us lived in that house. You can't believe it, can you? Irrespective of your upbringing or you know, where you're from, you know, it's that spirit that hopefully you can galvanise into be determined enough to be successful. You can be a working class boy with ambitions. This is Newport Rec. I spent a lot of my childhood here playing football. Just across the road was Pill YMCA, and I played for them when I was 8, 9 years of age all the way through. My father worked across the road at Whitehead Steelworks. You've got the docks over the far side and the steelworks there, so they were very close together. So Sunday afternoons, there'd be the dockers playing against the steelworkers. There'd be no bibs. The goals would be, you know, coats or whatever that was put down. And, you know, you play 10, 12 aside, 15 aside, 20 aside, as many players could join in as wanted. Spend hours here just playing. Brings back some great memories. We had nothing, but we had everything. I've lived the dream. Leaving this area when I was 16, I sat on the train going to Bristol, and I promised myself I would do everything, every single day, to make sure I made a success of it. I had my ups and downs. I was always capable because of what I'd learned and been brought up with in this area. I had that strength of character to get back up on the horse and start riding it again.
First and foremost, what is it about academy football that is dominating your thoughts?
Well, since I started, Rob, about 1 million years ago, I think one of the great changes in English football has been youth development. From the time I started, where there was just nominal amounts of players being taken on by professional football clubs, there was only 5 people with an intake, and they guaranteed you a 2-year apprenticeship and 1 year as a pro. And now, that employs thousands and thousands of people and also brings in thousands and thousands of kids. And I've ended up with a couple of my grandchildren involved in academy football as well. I wanted to have a really, really in-depth look, not just at the football, but also everything that surrounds it, and just find out how it works, the strengths, the weaknesses. So I've taken a lot out of football, and I'd love to give something back if possible.
You've been a manager for so many years, you've had to release players. How's that?
I found telling the kids at 16, 17, 18 years of age that they weren't good enough harder than telling other people, you know, that their time at the football club was up. It's traumatic, really, because you don't only just feel for them, you feel for their family as well. It's like apples falling off a tree. There's no safety net. You know, they hit the ground so hard, Rob, some of them never recover. It's a dream, Rob, and you can't take that dream from them. You know, there's a massive percentage of parents, when the kids go in, they actually think their kids are going to be players. So they've bought into the system. How many actually fail? And what do we do as a nation? What do we do as organisations to protect those kids who do fail? The sports industry now has a massive responsibility, not just to produce good sports people, but to produce good people.
We're not going to focus on female football in this series. That's still a very different world from male academies. But when it comes to the boys, this has to be a thorough investigation of all aspects of it, doesn't it? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, Rob, is that we cover everything. We look at the clubs at the lower end of the scale, and we look at the clubs at the top end. And then we take a view of what happens off the pitch as well as on the pitch. We look at the families, we look at what care they're getting, how the system works, and how it prepares the kids through that system. Let's start the journey by speaking to the people who have reached the top and done it at the top level. There's not many in our game who know more about developing and managing young players than Sir Alex Ferguson. Teams built on the foundations of youth. 38 major honours in 39 years. So what is Sir Alex's secret? Were there certain people who mentored you, pushed you in the right direction?
But on the football side, definitely my father. There's no doubt about that. The family, my brother and I, every holiday, first thing, the ball.
Yeah.
Took the ball on holiday all the time, would pass the ball, control the right foot, pass with the left, control the left, all the time. We had a great boys brigade teacher, Johnny Borland, a fantastic man. The BB camps every year, he put a list up on the board about what you had to bring. First thing was football boots. Always football boots. Number one. Then it was cutlery, T-shirts and all. And all there. But first was about football boots. Circumstances I grew up in, I was a shipbuilding area in Glasgow, Govan. We were in a tenant with 9 families. But I think it's a human quality that some people are destined with their own determination and possibly with their own upbringing that have a certain path in life.
What principles did you take with you into coaching and management, the young players? Was there certain rules, principles that you set them at a very, very young age that you think helped them?
I think your responsibility is to guide them in the same direction as I went myself. And they should have a sacrifice too. They want to be a top footballer. It's a privilege in many ways because a lot of these players were very lucky to get opportunities that were presented to them by playing for a club at Aberdeen and later on Manchester United. Making them aware of that is a job you should really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Make sure that they feel that responsibility.
What about the relationship, your relationship individually with the younger players? How important is that?
What I did was at St Mirren was what I really enjoyed was coaching young kids. We scouted all over Glasgow and Paisley. I paid great rewards.
Yeah.
We won the league with a young team. I think we had 5 players were picked in Scotland's under-21s. I enjoyed doing it, and I believed in it. And I had this strong belief that what I'd achieved at St Mirren was my path for everywhere I went. Everywhere I went, that was the most important thing for me. And at Aberdeen, increased the scouting department, had some terrific scouts, and we concentrated on youth. The United actual first team scored quite a few over 30. It took a while to get that part going. Once the ball was rolling at United, and the youth coach was terrific, Eric Harrison, really, really top coach. Eric had this consistency with him, that it was every day was the same. Prepare for the first team. He used to keep saying, you've got to remember you're going to be working for Alex Ferguson.
And when did you know, Alex, that you had such a good group?
City were getting all the best players at the time.
Were they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They'd won the Youth Cup. So we had to put a stop to that, you know what I mean? We increased the scouting, and we worked really hard at that. And particularly in Manchester, we got the Nevilles and the Scholes and the Butts, and David Beckham was the only one.
Yeah, it came from down south.
From down south, aye.
Yeah. When do you think you can see in a player that he's going to be a player?
Some are aware they've always liked Beckham, but Beckham never came in the reserve, the youth team until, he was nearly 18. When you get a gem like Giggs or Scholes, it's staring in the face. Ryan Giggs was because we had a steward, Harold Wood, came to me and says, there's a young boy who was training at City and he's a United fan. He said, you really got hold of him. We got him down to the ground right away. And they played in a practice match against Viv Anderson, and Viv was screaming, can I kick him? Can I can I tackle him? And I says, don't dare touch him, he's only 14. And Paul Scholes was an incredible young player. You get diamonds with that. The Neville's hard-working, always great sacrifice for the B footballer. Nicky Buck, determined young lad, always going to make it. You have a responsibility too, to give them the right guidance, to be strong in them in terms of the path you're taking them through. Play for Man United, play in front of 75,000, play in the cup final, play for their country. These are all the stepping stones that you're guiding them for.
Pep Guardiola has dominated English football since his arrival, winning 6 out of 8 titles. I went to pick his brains on his own journey and how he sees football development in this country.
Starting in my little town, when I was born, like all, the child in the neighborhoods, like in that time was no traffic lights in my little town, no cars, and all the time in the street. And after Academy Barcelona came, arrived with 13 years old, so all my life was there. And everything the Academy of Barcelona gave me, absolutely everything. Aware for the game, aware from how you have to behave, in a group of people, respect the managers and the institution, and everything. The club is more important than you. Accept that you are not good enough, you don't have to play, the effort, accept the defeats. Many details the sport teach you was there.
How important, Pep, was mentors in your life?
Mentors, Johan Cruyff was basically, when I was a little bit more mature. In that 30, you had a boy, away from a home, live in a residence, and the manager was a father figure in that moment. And you are lucky to find, the right ones.
You've been to Germany, obviously, Spain, Barcelona, England, Man City. If you're looking at the players now that have come through the teams that you've managed, why are those players so good, Pep? Is it just natural? Is Phil Foden just natural?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Natural skills is not enough.
Is it more difficult now to bring young players through?
It depends on the quality they have. It's difficult. It's a good question. It's difficult because always had the feeling the young players that we loan or we sell or didn't get the minutes, like Cole Palmer, for example. Yeah. If I would have give them, but not just catch the cold and explode, in terms it's unbelievable. And he deserves all this success and this season in Chelsea. It's not happened. If I would have give them the minutes that maybe deserve it, surrounded for David Silva, Vincent Kompany, all the big players there, put it there, they will have played good, absolutely. I know that. But in the moments, in that level, you know that you have to win for all the titles. You don't have too much time to, okay, let's see. Has to be, Phil Foden arrive, you see something like the impact has to be
straight away. Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's brought the level up. It's competition, Pep.
Yeah, right. It's a jungle. I see now national team from England. So imagine the time like a Lampard or Gerrard or Scholes and Ferdinand and Terry, Wayne Rooney, all these players. They were bad. And look now.
I know.
Phil and Saka and Hurricanes and all the players. And it will come. In 10 years' time, we'll see English national team and say, oh my God, what a player this one. It's natural selection.
My next stop took me to Spain to see a manager who's won league titles in Europe's top 5 divisions. Not to mention 5 Champions Leagues. It takes a brave boss to play the kids at the very best clubs. But what drives Carlo Ancelotti's philosophy when it comes to picking young players?
I started playing football and to have a passion for football when I was really young, 7, 8 years old. And then slowly, I grew up, and when I first started to think about to be a professional is when, at 15, I left my family and I went to Parma to play in the academy of Parma and to study in Parma. I lived for 4 years in Catholic college. Really tough, really strong. Yeah. Who I am now is because was the experience that I had in that period. My father was my role model. I think the sport helped me and teach me a lot to respect the people, respect the rules, respect the authority, your manager. I learned a lot from a lot of managers. I had Lidon, Sacchi, Capello, different character, Eriksson, and also a lot of teammates.
And over what has been an unbelievable career, fantastic career in different countries, what is it like today to play young players? How much has it changed?
I think that the player compared to me, the player now, if I have to compare myself with the player that are 20 years old that come to Real Madrid, I think that they have much more responsibility.
And how do you deal with that, Carlo?
Don't push to them a lot of pressure, because they have already a lot of pressure. Fortunately, in Real Madrid, the lack of this club, that we have veterans players without ego. And so this is important for the young to grow up in a good way. I think that you have to be able to adapt to the changes of the generation, to the changes of the society. My generation is different from the generation of the players now. Yeah. And I have to adapt. I don't want that they adapt to me, because I work in England, in France, in Spain, in Italy. For the fact that I want to respect the people, you have to adapt, to know, to work on the different characteristics, the different culture also, different language.
Do you think we have a responsibility to not only produce elite players, but also good people?
This is the key point. If I am a parent, why they want the son to play football? Why? Which is the reason? To be a top player or to be a good man?
Yeah.
If the reason that they bring to the academy to play football is to be a top player, they are wrong. For me, it was a fantastic school of life, because sport teaches a lot. To be disciplined, to work hard, to try to go over your limits, to have a relationship with the other, to understand the others, to have respect of the opponent. There are an amount of things that you can learn.
How important, Carlo, and how strong have you got to be to play young players at the top clubs?
Because a top club, we don't have time and space to grow up the young.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean that the young cannot play. The young can play, and he plays if he's good enough. Yeah. It doesn't matter the age. It's also the opposite. It's not true that because you are young, you have to play.
Yeah.
I cannot give to you minutes here in the top club, because the goal of the club is not to grow up the young, it's to win games. 20 years ago, if you had talent, you could be at the top, but now it's not enough.
Back in England, I went to catch up with my former manager and someone I've faced plenty of times in the opposite dugout, a man with decades of experience working with younger players.
I used to go train at Tottenham, 11 years of age. Spend my time in the same training ground as Dave Mackay, Danny Blanchflower, John White, all the great players, that double-winning team at Tottenham, Cliffy Jones. And you'd be around them every day, and then leaving school and deciding at the last minute, really, deciding to go to West Ham. Ron Greenwood, again, was a manager who had such an interest in the kids, in producing homegrown players at West Ham, because everybody came through the youth team. Everybody was homegrown. They didn't buy players. It was different. We all trained at the same training ground. Nowadays, they have academies, and so the kids don't see the first team. We were there every day. You're with the first team, you're around them, you done the kit, you cleaned the boots, but that was all part of your job for the first 2 years as an apprentice. So at 15, there's Bobby Moore, and there's all the great players at West Ham, and off you go. You run through the forest together, you all train together, you come back in the afternoon, you'd all work. You learn from the first team. You spent your time around. That's where you got your habits from. They knew you, they talked to you. So when you eventually got into the first team group, it wasn't no big shock to you.
So when you got involved in coaching and managing age, what was the biggest difference?
Well, everything was so different, Tony. What I tried to do, though, all my time at West Ham, I used to go every Saturday morning watch the youth team play when the first team was at home. Never miss a game. The parents are there. They see you there as a manager. They know you're interested. The kids know you're there. It gives them a lift. They know the manager's interested in them. They've got someone who's looking at them, and hopefully it's a path through for them. We end up with Rio, Frank, Joe Cole, Carrick, Defoe, Glenn Johnson all coming out together. Very, very, very few football managers now would go and watch the kids play.
Yeah,
it don't happen. It's like a short-term job. The first team have a few bad results, they lose their job. I ain't got time to worry about the kids. This is 3 or 4 years down the line. I'm not. And unfortunately, that's how it's gone.
As a family man, yourself and Sandra, what was the feelings around the two boys? Mark obviously didn't make it, and Jamie did make it. What advice would you give parents, H?
Let them get on with it, Tone. Don't be too busy. Go and watch them. My dad came every youth game, stood out the way, never shouted, never done... Ron Greenwood wouldn't let the parents shout at the kids anyway. You weren't allowed to. The parents want them to be a footballer, but sometimes you can put too much pressure on the kids. When they go into academies, it's up to us to produce more players, Tone, really, you know, with that talent they've got at that age.
I wanted the opinion of a top young manager, someone who'd experienced the system firsthand and now deals with it from the other side. Who better then than someone I gave a debut to at Portsmouth, age 16, and is now thriving in management himself.
January 2000. I can barely even remember it. And I hadn't been in the club long, had I? I was still only a first year, YT.
The only thing I can remember about it, remember Lindsay Parsons?
Yep.
Lynn said to me, listen, there's a little lad, O'Neill, play him. You were about 8 stone. Mandrich, who was a chairman, and he walked round the dressing room and he sort of like tapped you on the head and he walked over to me. Why have we got 2 mascots today? I said, Milan, they're not mascots, they're players.
Yeah, I mean, the kit didn't help me. It was one size fits all then, wasn't it? You didn't get a choice.
Was there anybody specifically along the way that sort of like pushed you that way, or was it just self-determination for you to stay in the game?
I had some great managers, and you learn from all of them. At Portsmouth, you, obviously Big Sam as well, he was unbelievably well organised. And then mentor-wise, I had some great ones. The league was more British then, probably, so I had some senior British players that had played a lot of games at Portsmouth. Steve Stone came in, Dave Unsworth, Tim Sherwood, Teddy Sheringham. Stoney, I remember Stoney coming up to me and grabbing me by the wet top and saying, if you don't tackle, he said, I'm going to tackle you. And I was like, no worries, I'll tackle, mate, I'll tackle. You don't see stuff like that in the game now. You don't, like, obviously there's a way to do things, but it helped me.
Do you still think it's important that players have got mentors?
100%, 100%. And I try to be that for a lot of it's difficult in this role because you want to try and keep a bit of a distance. And the lads also want to they don't want to be open with me all the time. They don't want to tell me when they're not feeling great because they think they might not play. But it's important, and I use the staff. The staff are great at it. Neil Cutler, Sean Derry, getting around the lads and trying to make sure they're okay. They do need people to speak to, people to check up on them, people to keep reminding them when they let themselves down. So really important that they have some support around them.
How have you seen the academy grow through your period?
Oh, completely different. I'd love to have had a chance at being a young lad now. Obviously, the level's probably gone up, so you have to get to a higher level to make it. But the support you're given, like, I remember I was tiny. I was tiny, and no one ever spoke to me about being tiny. And like they were like, oh, he's small, but he can run all day. But if I would have had it again now and I'd have had the sports science and the people around me who could have said to me, come on, we need to get more powerful. You don't want to be big, but you need to be explosive. You need to be able to get away from people. I would have loved to have had that sort of insight from people where I could have fully committed to trying to make myself better. I think the boys now get so much good stuff to help them maximise what they are. But I do think trying to create a player from an academy to be ready for the Premier League is an incredibly tough task. And I do think there's a responsibility within the game to prepare the lads for, one, how hard it's going to be. Because you think, as a young lad, you watch the Premier League on the telly and all the players have got nice cars and nice jewellery, and it's like, this is fantastic. It's like, yeah, you're going to have to take a few knocks, though, to get here, by the way. You're going to have to be really good. You're going to have to take a load of knocks, a load of criticism, a load of failures, and then, if you're really lucky, you're going to get a chance to do this. So there's so much pressure on them. I've got a little boy who's under 10s playing at Wimbledon at the moment. I just prepare him mentally for everything, for what it is and how hard it is. Parents think that getting signed at under 9 is the be-all and end-all. The pressure that is put on that 8-year-old for that season, do you know what I mean? It's like, come on, Palace are watching, or Millwall are watching. Yeah. Come on, I'm like, oh my God, he's 8. And then once you get in, your hopes are so high to have them then smashed at the end of it after all that hard work is a real tough situation. So really good that people are putting some real thought and effort into trying to make it better for them.